that he's hearing me loud and clear. So I'll request Pastor Yatsa to open us with a word of prayer. Thank you.
Okay, let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for this wonderful evening as we listen, learn. Pray that you give us wisdom, you give us understanding. Pray, Lord, that it will be a fruitful engagement. And I pray that whatever we learn here will be something we can put in practice to help us be better. May you give wisdom to the facilitators. Lord, may you help them as they share with us today. And may you bring the rest to our own. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor Sa. Again, my name is Susan Lukwago. I'm honored to be your moderator tonight. I would like to welcome you again to the dialogue on parenting and health, mental health issues. We are honored to host you tonight. We are also honored to have already our facilitators logged in. Thank you so much for keeping time. And we know that we are going to have a great time with you. The request for bios was deferred vehemently, so I will just say just a little bit that I know about them. And just in case they want to say more about themselves as they come in, they will be telling us more. Otherwise, our facilitators, we have Mr. Birungi Peter. We are honored to have you, Mr. Birungi. Mr. Birungi is a clinical psychologist. I know that he does a lot of things and he has vast experience in issues to do with mental health. And we are sure and confident that you're going to tap a lot from you this afternoon. Welcome, Mr. Birungi. I know that people behind the mics are excited and expectant to hear from you. And I know that they've welcomed you in a special way. In GABA, we have a special way we welcome our visitors, and I know they have welcomed you. So thank you, Mr. Birungi, for honoring our invitation. We also have Ms. Wacha. Ms. Wacha is a teacher and a counselor. Like I said, I'm only saying what I was permitted to say about them. I don't want to be tempted to say so much because I know they have such big bios, but I don't want to go into them since I was cautioned not to do so. Otherwise, you're welcome, and we are happy to be with you. Just to run through the role of this dialogue, the intention of this dialogue is to create first awareness on mental health issues. Yes, we need to create awareness on mental health issues so that we're able to handle, just in case there are those who are struggling and actually don't know where the issues are coming from. This afternoon, I know by the time we end this dialogue, we'll be well informed and we'll be able to handle. And then also we expect that us who have been part of this dialogue will be able to go and create more awareness with others who have not attended. Without any further ado, I don't want to waste any more time. I would like to call on our panelists, and I'd like to request Mr. Birungi to just unmute and say hello to us and speak to us. And then also Mr. Birungi will help us understand the most common challenges that are faced with mental health in as far as parenting is concerned. So over to you, Mr. Birungi, you're welcome and we're excited to have you. Your audience are parents, guardians, and caretakers. So we know that we're going to pick a lot from your experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Lukwago. It's an honor to be here. I'll be using a bit of slides that are borrowed from the government of UK Department of Education, so you bear with me. But I need to confirm, am I loud and clear?
Yes, you are, unless if anyone has a complaint.
Yeah. So since they said that bios were greatly deferred, let me try and give more detail here. My name is, as I've been introduced, I am a clinical psychologist, mental health consultant, and a mental health services innovator. Yeah, that's what I do as educator. I'm more experienced in mental health than parenting, though I parent. So I am going to share different things based on that. I don't know if I'm allowed to share my screen yet.
You're a co-host, so
Yeah.
you can do a lot.
All right. Thank you very much. So like I said, I'm using these slides that are borrowed because they carried what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to start there with talking about what mental health actually is. When you say mental health, you are talking about those things that the person, and this is really the World Health definition of it, the person is able to emotionally, creatively, intellectually, and spiritually develop or grow. There's evidence that they are developing on all those ends. So if you're struggling to grow emotionally, if you seem not to be going on spiritually, if your intellectual capacity growth is not improving, there are questions about your mental health. You're able to initiate, develop, sustain mutually satisfying personal relationships. If you're always breaking relationships here and there for no good reason, there's a question. You're able to face problems, resolve them, and learn from them. That also defines mental health. You can be confident and assertive. You're aware of others and you can empathize. Empathy means you are able to see things from another person's perspective, but also engage and feel what they are feeling and relate to them based on not just what you're feeling as an individual, but having sat in their seat, you are relating to them, thinking, if I was in their seat, I would have loved someone to behave like this towards me. You're able to use and enjoy solitude. Solitude means you can be alone and be okay. You're able to play and have fun. You can laugh both at yourself and the world. These are key definitions or key indicators of mental health. When we say someone is mentally healthy, that's what we mean. Now, when we say parent is mentally healthy, you can contextualize that. Are you confident in your parenting? Are you assertive enough to say no to a child when you need to say no? I think parenting, first of all, has different stages. If you're parenting a toddler, you are at a different place in comparison to the one parenting a 13-year-old, and that person is also in a different place to one parenting a 17-year-old, 16-year-old. Because at 16, we are talking about independence. Just that we don't have the capacity to be fully independent. So your parenting style keeps changing, or your parenting practice has to keep evolving. Now, there are those 4 traditionally known parenting styles, which I'm not going to major on unless someone really feels they want to talk about parenting styles at this point. I want to look at parenting practices as a whole. Yeah. So based on this study and what the UK government was able to generate, and I want to say that usually these statistics are not very varied when you try to look them up in our context. We have globally standardized gaps or ranges. Let me just call them ranges. So 1 in 6 adults just in Great Britain have a neurotic disorder. 1 in 6. But I've looked elsewhere and they say 1 in 4 are likely to have a mental health disorder over the course of their lifetime. 1 in every 4 people needs. And we'll talk about them because they happen along a scale. The person who is having persistent stress or heightened stress is not the same as one who is going through anxiety, or another who is going through depression, or another who is having schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Like, we all can have different things. So, but take note of this statistic that 1 in 6 adults is likely to have a neurotic disorder, and 1 in 2,000 may have a psychotic disorder. When they say psychotic, we mean where you have totally lost touch with reality and you're hearing things and seeing things that are actually unreal. So of these, 1 in 4 adults, that's between 25 to 50%, will be parents. So of these, 1 in 4 adults, that is between 25% to 50% will be parents. So if you meet 4 people who are mentally challenged or going through mental health challenges, you might find that either 2 of them or at least 1 of them is a parent. So according to Lemming 2009, he estimated that 450,000 parents in England had mental health problems. Of course, we are not doing a lot of research here in Africa. So if you try to look up these statistics for Africa, you might not get much. But we have started. Africa has started really doing research. So anytime now we will have statistics. But I want to tell you that you might not find much difference. So commitment to universal preventative services will facilitate identification of children in need within this particular area, because if the parent is affected, then the children become children in need. They need help and service and support. All right. 50,000 to 200,000 children and young people in the UK alone are caring for a parent with severe mental illness, which you'll hear us call SMI, severe mental illness. If your mental health goes unchecked, so if you start to struggle with your mental health, let me say this, because to get to a severe level, it means you have progressed, but some people are genetically already wired to have this. So if the parent because mental health illness, when it becomes illness, there are things we consider to say that someone is mentally ill. 1, it is causing so much distress for the person who is having it. 2, the person is no longer able to carry out their social occupational roles. And by that we mean occupational, their work and related tasks. When we say social, we include your social roles as a parent, as a wife, as a husband. You might now start to fail to do them as you used to, because you're going through a mental health challenge. And I would like to keep it at going through, because most of the time when we talk about these things, people want to stigmatize, people want to label. But I don't believe that these are permanent state things. I believe that mental health is just like physical health. Just like people can manage mental health. I don't know why Essie's hand has been up since the call began. I don't know. I mean, if you can talk to Essie to lower their hand, it's quite distractive. Seeing it up, we're wondering. Yeah. So if someone has a mental health challenge, I think they can work through it the same way we work through physical health. And maybe on this call, I would even urge us, if you know a parent who is struggling, the way you would support someone with a physical health challenge, the same support can help with a parent who is having a mental health challenge. Because the reason why children begin to take care of their parents is because adults in their circle have not stood in to help. So we continue. So a reanalysis of Clever and Walker and Meadows study of 2,248 referrals to children's social care, as in places where they take children who need care because parents can no longer care or parents are going through a thing, found that parental mental illness amongst such children who report to social care here in Uganda, that would be the Child Welfare and Probation Office, yeah, found that mental illness was recorded to be at 10.4% of the referrals. In other words, for every 100 children who showed up, 10 to 11 of them had parents who are suffering from mental illness. Following an initial assessment, parental mental illness is recorded to be at 16.9% of cases. That is, if I was to go by every 10 cases of children who show up, we would find that 2 of them are there because their parents are going through mental illness. So parental mental illness was identified in 25% of cases coming to a child protection conference. I hope we all are familiar with the word child protection. It means the child's safety is at risk. For child protection to move in, it means there are issues to do with child welfare and safety. Yeah. And in some, 43% of cases where children are subject to care proceedings. Can you imagine that of all those 43% already have a legal case or something going on? Yeah. It could be adoption, but it could also be abuse and neglect. And I would say that abuse and neglect usually is the biggest number of cases that are going through these proceedings. Children of parents with mental health difficulties are at a greater risk of experiencing health, social, and or psychological problems. And I would, in my simple understanding of this, one, usually mental health or mental illness runs in genes. Most of the cases, especially for psychosis and things like that, you find that it runs in genes. But even if it wasn't, the fact that the parent is unwell, we know that there are things that are going to come out of that. Their behavior and their capacity to take care of the child, besides just becoming an embarrassment to the child in some cases, might be higher and higher. The risk is higher and higher. So research again by Koslow, 1994, Ferro, 2000, identified that a significant number of parents of depressed children had themselves increased levels of depression, anxiety, substance misuse, and antisocial behavior. And I would like to suggest to you that these are actually the most common mental health problems among parents. Depression, anxiety, substance misuse, and antisocial behavior. Now, combined issues such as genetic inheritance, social adversity, and psychological factors may lead to an increased chance of children experiencing mental health. I've already talked about the fact that mental health challenges or illness usually is genetic, has a genetic link. That if you have a mentally ill parent, the likelihood is high that if it doesn't show up within you, it might show up in your children or their children. Genetic transmission. But also, social adversity, poverty, domestic violence, things like that, and other psychological factors increase the risk of children experiencing mental health issues themselves. So let's now talk about question 1, which was, how does parental mental health impact the parenting style? Which I would prefer to go direct to what we want to talk about, parenting practice. And I like that these guys actually zeroed in down to the parent-child relationship, which is the actual thing we're looking at. So On the first column, I want you to notice the type of mental health challenge. In the second column, notice that those are symptoms. And in the third column, notice that's the effect it will have on your parenting or will have on someone's parenting. I'm under the thinking that many people who are here are actually carers for people who might be going through this. So depression first to begin with, and we are talking about unipolar affective disorder. Symptoms will include lack of energy, lethargy, and low mood, disturbed sleep, appetite loss, concentration problems, and it might become difficult for the parent to focus on tasks. For example, if you're a mother and you're cooking, things are going to get bad. You might actually take your eyes off a child who is in your environment. Now, if you have a 2-year-old, they are quite busy. 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, they are busy. Before you know, the child is at the flat iron. Before you know, they've turned it on. Before you know, you have a burning case. But that's because the parent can no longer concentrate the way she used to concentrate. So if you're the husband of such a lady, if you're unaware, you're not going to be very helpful. Most likely that will lead to a conflict. Most likely then we'll have a domestic violence issue or strained conflictual communication amongst you, which is going to impact the child. Even before you do anything to them, it will impact them. So there also be difficulty in making decisions. Depression actually carries more symptoms. Sometimes people actually consider suicide or even attempt it. Now, when they consider, because suicide is at different levels, there are people who think it and don't do it. There are those who think it and even start planning to do it. They can even go a step further into starting to express it. Now, when a parent starts to express this to their children, depending on their age, I want you to imagine what they'll be feeling and what will be happening with them. How will it affect the parenting? It will cause physical and emotional neglect, insufficient involvement, but also it will make you an irritable, critical parent. Now, if you have an adolescent or a teenager, they usually are not very good at taking negative criticism. And if you're all the time more negative than positive, you're sending them further where they're going to try and find elsewhere where they can get some affirmation and recognition, which is positive. So you will have negative involvement, insufficient involvement plus negative involvement. I'll leave that to the specialist on the call. I know that Ms. Watcher can talk into the parenting styles a little more. Yeah. So lack of communication, because the insufficient involvement plus negative involvement equals a certain type of parenting style, actually. So lack of communication and emotional support for the child is also going to happen. And then we'll have what we call inconsistent parenting with time, where you might have the excess of over and under involvement. One of those. So when we talk about bipolar affective disorder, this is one of those challenging mental health problems because it switches. You have, the other one was unipolar, one pole. It's just depression. But now this one has a combination of both depression and mania or manic episode. So you have at one point the parent is hyper. I mean, they are extremely switched on. That's how I like to explain hyper mood or mood elevation and its related behavior. But on the other end, they will reach a season and now they are depressed. So extreme physical and mental energy when they are in the manic episode. They are argumentative, they are dictatorial, they are haughty. Those are parental symptoms that you will see. But on the other end, when they go to the low pole, you will see them displaying the depressed symptoms. Again, the impact will be one of these. So you have inconsistent parenting, especially with the bipolar affective parent. Now, depressive disorder, per se, you will have guilt, despair, helplessness, hopelessness, self-blame, tearfulness, hopelessness. Now that I want you to imagine the child. The mother now starts to seek comfort from the child. Again, we will have inconsistent parenting, over or under parenting, under involvement. Yeah. And I want you to think about two major things: support and safety. Those are major things that parents will give a child. When we say support, think about warmth and presence, really being present, warmth, where we show it by our care, our attentiveness to the child's communication, and just being with them. But on the other hand, we have safety, the setting and protection of boundaries, healthy boundaries, where the child knows how far they can go and how far they shouldn't go. They can talk to you, but they also know that there are limitations to what they can do and what is expected of them. Healthy boundaries. So when you have the parent crossing the boundary and making the child the parent is seeking comfort from the child. And I would like to add, we have cases where parents, they parentify the children. You start to have cliques in your own family, where one parent is for this child, the other parent is for the other child, to an unhealthy levels anyway. So, and then we have psychotic depression. This one has delusions of guilt, despair, hallucinations, suicidal and homicidal thoughts or plans. What will we see on the when it comes to the relationship with the child, how the parent will do it? There will be severe neglect and involvement in delusions. The thing that is dangerous about these delusions is when they are about the child. When you start, delusions are false beliefs. Hallucinations are false sensations. And when your senses start perceiving, or you have false perceptions, you hear, you see things that are unreal. You feel things that are unreal. On the other hand, if you're going to start believing that your child is the cause of your pain, the child hates me, I believe that child hates me, of course, then your reaction and your attention to them is going to start being negative. Then you have borderline personality disorder. What happens here is that we will see the parent showing up with being unstable in relationships. We'll see them becoming hostile, being violent, being impulsive, being reckless. Sometimes there is a lot of alcohol and substance abuse and misuse. They will lack empathy. They engage in self-harm, and other symptoms that are associated with other mental health problems or challenges. Now, on the parenting side, we'll see them getting over-involved. Intrusive interactions, you want to read the child's, now those of you who have teenagers, you want to be in their phone, you want to get into all their conversations, you want to control everything. The child feels so contained, boxed in. And you can have also positive and negative reactions to their behavior, which might include harsh discipline and criticism, lack of empathy. You model for them antisocial behavior, and exposure. You start to expose them to discord and violence. You engage them in your fights. Your home is a danger zone. Inconsistency. Today you said this, tomorrow you want this. The child doesn't know what to expect of you. you have inappropriate expectations for self-care by a child, you know, you want the child to take care of themselves beyond what they should actually be responsible for. And again, you're seeking comfort from the child. I'm going to give an example. Parents who have conflict within themselves, and each of them confides in the child. Especially as children grow, what you're doing to them is actually making them hate marriage, because you're sending the wrong signals completely. Neglect, which can be both emotional neglect or physical, or both. You neglect them and you have intolerance of their needs for care. That's borderline. That's what it does. So there's schizophrenia or schizophrenia, which is actually what some people think is called madness. But usually this is when parents are having delusions, hallucinations. Those are the positive symptoms. Then we have the negative symptoms, which include apathy and withdrawal. Now, what will that do to parenting? You'll be inconsistent. Again, you'll be over-involved, both positive or hostile, and involvement in delusions, especially the ones about the child, because those are the ones that will actually affect them most. But also, you could have a delusion that where you believe that you're not the actual parent of the child. What will that do to parenting? Neglect, unresponsive to children's needs, both physical and emotional needs. Then we have the big one, anxiety disorders. So of all things that I've mentioned, depression and anxiety are likely to be more common than the others. And if the parent is anxious and is having it to a disorder level, we will see poor concentration, we will see irritability, we will see vigilance, we will see poor impulse control. You can't control what you're feeling. Tension, agitation, avoidance, and we'll see physical symptoms including sweating, pressured speech, to mention but a few. What will we see when it comes to parenting? How will that impact your parenting style or your parenting practice? You'll become irritable, or you are overly critical, and therefore you're giving the child negative attention, negative involvement. Inconsistent in your parenting practice, and then you are over and under involved. We also have you seeking comfort from the child. By now, I believe that you have seen that mental health will impact your parenting. But I also like to say that every parent is a product of parenting. When you think about it, you are who you are because of how you are parenting. Who agrees with me on this one? Most of us repeat what you've experienced as a child. When you become a parent, most likely you're going to be one of your parents. Well, exposure to high levels of stress and adversity increases the likelihood that a child born with a genetic will be born with a genetic predisposition to mental illness, and therefore will also develop symptoms at an early age. And this is in respect to unborn children. So mothers, expecting mothers and expecting fathers, it becomes very important for you to actually watch and protect your mental health and do your best to keep it at a healthy level. Maternal depression is a potent but malleable risk factor for child psychopathology. And there's a reason to believe that early detection of depression in mothers, along with short-term support for their children, may prevent the development of disorders before they begin. That's according to Rees in 2008. Again, there's a finding mothers suffering from schizophrenia, anxiety, and depression find it more difficult to keep medical appointments which puts their health and the child's health in danger. Babies may be neglected. That is 1 month to 12 months old babies may be neglected physically and emotionally. All right. I feel like asking people to start talking now, but let's keep going. Cognitive development and learning may also be delayed through parents' inconsistent, understimulating, and hostile behavior. Now, these children of 1 to 12 months, one of the things that people don't know usually is that that's an age for growing the child's thinking capacities and their perception of the world. So you want to do their responsibilities for the parent at that stage. At some point in my career, I worked with mothers of newborns, 0 to 3-year-olds anyway. Those who are expecting up to the child's 3rd birthday. And one of the things that I got to appreciate is when you get serious about creating a healthy, cognitively, socially, emotionally stimulating environment for the child. Actually, these children by age 3 were different in comparison to other children of their ages. The rate at which they spoke, but also I noticed that when there was trouble at home, it was very quick. The impact was quick on arrival at the child's point. You'd quickly see it. So insensitivity and emotional unavailability in parents may also result in inappropriate responses, which causes poor bonding and insecure attachment. As for insecure attachment, it's a big problem because attachments actually live on to adulthood. So a baby's health and development may be exacerbated by living in an impoverished physical environment as well. What am I saying without saying? It's important for parents to make money and create good environments for their children. 1 year to 4-year-olds. Illness and injury are not recognized, and adequate and timely medical help may not be sought. When a parent is mentally ill, they might not recognize illness and injury, and the care might be too late. There's risk for accidents, injuries, abuse, and all these may be increased because parental awareness and supervision is inadequate. The diet may be inadequate and unsuitable. Health problems might be exacerbated or might increase and become worse by living in impoverished physical environments. Cognitive and language development might also be delayed. And again, insecure attachment and long-term emotional and behavioral problems may arise as a result of unpredictable and frightening parental behavior. 5-year-olds to 10-year-olds. There's increased risk of physical injury. Children may show symptoms of extreme anxiety and fear. Remember that these ones now are more, they can see and actually think deeper than the ones below, the 4-year-olds and below. Again, these are school going. Academic attainment might be negatively affected. The child's behavior in school can also become problematic. Most of the children that show up in a treatment room for behavioral problems in these age groups, when you dig deeper, there's always a family factor. Boys more quickly exhibit problematic behavior, but girls are also affected if parental problems endure. Poor self-esteem. Children may blame themselves for their parents' problems. This is very common as well. So as you fight, as you do all your things as parents, who is affected most? When 2 elephants fight, the grass suffers. Inconsistent parental behavior may also cause anxiety and faulty attachments. Again, unplanned separation can cause distress and disrupt education and friendship patterns. Again, you're affecting the child's social future. Embarrassment and shame over parents' behavior as a consequence of As a consequence, children may actually curtail friendships and social interaction. So the child who is supposed to be an outgoing child becomes withdrawn and doesn't make the necessary social connections because of embarrassment and shame over the parent's health state and behavior. The assumption of too much responsibility for themselves, their parents, and the younger siblings, they become parentified too early. Coping with puberty without support, increased risk for mental health problems, including alcohol and drug use. Why? They're using these to cope with their stress and pain. So they will get in earlier. Even when they shouldn't have, they'll get involved because they're seeking solace. And then the education and learning will end up not being supported by parents because they are going through their own battle. Education will be adversely affected by worries about the safety and welfare of their parents and younger siblings. In the end, school is missed to look after parents and siblings. Education is disrupted because of changes of school. Yeah, they have to change school sometimes because they are moving. If they get into another care, they might be moved also. Or if parents can no longer afford the school where they've been, they will end up changing school or even stopping school. There's increased risk for emotional disturbance, including self-harm, and increased risk of social isolation and being bullied. 11 to 15-year-olds, increased risk of conduct disorders, including bullying, increased risk for adolescent boys of being sexually abusive, but also being abused sexually. They become vulnerable. Poor or ambivalent relationships with parents, lack of positive role models in the home, especially poor self-image and low self-esteem. Again, this age group now, 11 to 15-year-olds, are very, very social. They actually have started to identify their stars outside the home, even when parents are well and things are going well. This age group is the age group when the child is starting to explore their external world more. So guess what they will be doing? They'll be running away from everything that looks like their parents. So they'll end up with the wrong role models many times. But also they will be feeling like they are not like other children. So their image, self-image is going to be affected and they'll have low self-esteem. Friendships will be restricted or lost. We all know the reason. Feelings of isolation and having no one to turn to will increase. Increased responsibilities of being a young carer. And then denial of their own needs and feelings is going to happen. Just a moment. Let's talk about vulnerability and adversity. Yeah. What is mental health of these parents who are mentally ill going to do? It's going to cause vulnerability and adversity. If you are ill and God forbid you didn't take care of your illness and now you can no longer work, there's already issues at home. The breadwinner is not there. The mother who can no longer focus because she's ill, the carer is not there. What will we have? A chaotic, disorganized household without routine. Everything is upside down. There's poverty. There's isolation geographically and socially. There's substance misuse and domestic violence. And then there's the parent's need, physically and psychologically. Because the parents are not there, they are not available anymore, but they also need support. They're like children now. Like we need parents in the home to parent both the parents and the children. We have poor role models. We have sibling interaction, which is going to be stifled actually. And then you have inappropriate responsibility. I would like me talk about this one too. Maybe we'll stop with the next one. Let's talk about protective and resilience factors. These can prevent or can at least what we call ameliorate or reduce the impact. Okay. If the parents have sufficient income support and good physical standards in the home, if there's practical and domestic help, if there's regular medical and dental checks, including school medicals, regular attendance at school, with sympathetic and empathic and vigilant teachers, if there are mentors, good mentors with whom the child can talk about their issues. If there's an adult who assumes the role of a champion and takes over and stands with this family, the acquisition of a range of coping strategies and being sufficiently confident to know what to do when parents are, let's say, bipolar patients, when the episode comes, the children are prepared, they know what to do, they know how to handle, they know who to reach out to, there's someone to go to. These can protect so that we don't lose the parenting thing totally. All right. What do we want to understand about children, and how do children understand? We want to understand parents' mental illness. The children need to understand it. You need to hear their personal concerns, but also we need to understand the parents' concerns, because I think when people get mentally ill, sometimes we discount them. But what needs to happen is to give them a voice as well. So you need to hear both the children and the parents' concerns. We need to hear what the children attribute their parents' illness to. Why? It's not uncommon for children to blame themselves for what's going on with their parents. So we need to hear what they attribute that situation to. And we need to give them as much information as possible to understand what their parents are going through. And also we need to give the parents the same. They need to understand what they are going through and how it is impacting the rest of the family. We need to help them to recognize signs of mental illness. We also need to be able to identify, as a caring community, we need to know the signs. And we need to understand the impact of hospitalization and how to manage mental illness. Coping with the impact of parents' illness on the children's side, but also I would like the parents to know how to cope with their own illness. I want to stop right there, and I want to hear what the house is saying. I don't know if we're going to do this now or later. I'm going to hand over to the moderator.
I think what we can do right now, because we have not heard from Miss Wacha, not heard her voice, so we would like to hear from her. But thank you so much, Mr. Virunji. You have indeed exposed this very well to us, and we feel safer where we are now. We know what to do with our parenting, and of course, it is work in progress. We have learned that we are the support and we are the safety for our children. So, Ms. Wacha, we would like to hear more from you. Mr. Birunji has elaborated about the parenting styles and how we parent, what affects us as we are parenting. So now we want to hear more. We would like to hear more about how this parenting affects the development of our children, because at the end of the day, we want to parent to help development to take place. So you're welcome, Ms. Wacha, to share with us. And also maybe you can help us appreciate how we can respond to such issues of parenting when they keep rising. So we welcome you to speak to us. Thank you so much. Ms. Wacha, you're muted.
Can you hear me? Am I on?
Yes, you're now loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you to the Gaba Community Church Fellowship. Thank you for the parents and guardians who are able to log in, and for those who are listening online, thank you. Mr. Virunji has done an excellent job. Peter, thank you very much. I mean, as he was talking, I was taking notes. Sometimes, we forget. We forget to take care of ourselves as parents, and then when the things are overwhelming, then we realize, wait, we need to actually stop. And something that he said was that sometimes when we know that we have an illness and we don't take care of it, it gets to a point where it can actually immobilize us. We are not able to work or things like that because we didn't take care of it when we could. And for me, that gives me hope. The hope is that we can actually take care of these things. And I think one of the things that we want to know from Peter is where we can go to ensure that we have the treatment that we need. Do you think Peter can maybe just tell us that before I continue? Where do we go for help?
I've seen some colleagues of mine on this call. I've seen some clinicians. I see Mr. Osir Tuke. I've seen Kulindi Tito. I know that Mr. Alpago is also a mental health practitioner. So we can go to people, first of all, but we can also go to institutions. Government has hospitals. And at every government hospital, there is a psychiatric clinical officer, there's a psychiatrist. If it's a general referral, there will be a counselor. And then we also have so many counseling houses that are practicing. I personally lead a team that does that. But I know that they're also organizations that are providing mental health care within our... Sorry, someone has called my line. Sorry. So we can utilize all these places. Butarika is a good place. It has both. I know that it has been stigmatized, but I know that it treats all the full array of mental health challenges. I know that Mulago has a mental health unit. Many private hospitals do this. It's always good to seek out, but also at churches, I know there are counselors. You can start with a church counselor, and then they can direct you to the next point. If they are professional, they should know what to do. They should be able to direct you to the next point if you're unwell. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Yes. Many times we don't even know that there are places where we can go for help. So it's just important for us to know that. I just want to take a little bit of a detour from what Peter was talking about, still mental health, but moving slightly away from mental illness into our mental health generally.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Okay. Right. I think there's a delay in the network. Is it mine? Right. So just a slight, detour into general mental health. Definitely Peter expounded on that so well, just letting us know what the definitions are. But I just want to hear from the audience. What are some of those challenges that we struggle with? Not necessarily mental illness, but he mentioned some key ones. He mentioned depression. He mentioned anxiety, substance use. Those are coming up as, the things that happen in the lives of parents. So parents here and guardians, any challenges that you may be having, let's just open it up for a bit of a discussion. Let's hear what some of our challenges are. Am I being heard?
Yes, you're heard.
Yes. Not necessarily a mental illness, How about stress? Something like stress. Aha. Thank you, Tito. I see Tito responding. He's saying grief, loss. Can I ask our moderator to just read those out for us, please, as they come along in the chat? Susan?
Oh, yes, we in the chat we have in addition. Yes, the chat we have that we do have challenges. Yes, the ones we've just mentioned, such as stressful life events, grief, loss of a loved one, among others. And there was also an earlier comment that in addition to what Mr. Virunji has said, as we integrate mental health and psychosocial support into primary health care, clinical psychology is also part of the clinical teams. It's work in progress. Okay, that was a comment made earlier, but those are the challenges that the audience has brought out.
Yeah.
But we have a challenge of frustration. Sometimes we get frustrated, especially when we expect so much from these children, like because you have been bringing her to church every Sunday, you want her to speak in tongues at 14 years of age. So how do we handle that?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I see Dr. Salah has a hand raised. Go on, doctor. Dr. Salah, you're muted.
Okay. Yes, good afternoon. First, I would like to appreciate our presenter,
Yeah.
Mr. Peter. It has been really wonderful listening to him to speak on mental health. Yeah, mental health is something that is really very serious, especially in the current, modern world where most of the stress we are getting from our workplace, the stress we get from home, and then in taking care of our children. We are exposed a lot. So I really appreciate this kind of talk to continue, Mrs. Catherine, and then the team for bringing out this topic. I'm listening from South Sudan. I'm a general practitioner, and in most cases, we deal with all kind of patients, of which some of them are actually having the mental issues. And in my personal, life, working as a doctor, we are also exposed to a lot of factors that are stressful, especially when you see patients that need to be attended and then there are no facilities that we can use to attend them. Sometimes there's that feeling of guilt that, oh, I could have done better, I could have done this, but your hands are tied. So these are some of the stress that we are exposed to. And then the other thing is, as a parent, back in the days, in the ancient time, all we just do is to dig, and then you get the food, you eat, and then you sleep. So this is how it is. You get married, you have children, and those children do the same routine. No? We are not worried of things like education. We are not worried of things like health. We are not worried of things like, maybe having fancy vehicle, building fancy houses. We just there. But currently we are now into this kind of world where everything, we need to put into work. We have to pay our children's school fees. We have to pay for health. We have to build a house where we can live and then associate, all these kind of things are the ones that are really pushing us into the stressful situation. And of course, as somebody said that all diseases currently enter the body through the mind. That literally means if you are going to be stressed and if that stress continues to get, it's going to give you depression, and then in the long run, you are going to get chronic diseases like hypertension and diabetes. So we have been seeing a lot of these diseases coming up, especially in South Sudan, and we relate to the mental health, issues. So if you don't have the mental health, you're mentally ill, so you are prone to those kind of diseases, and then we will be asking how best can we help, our people on, making to understand that therapy, especially the psychotherapy, is something that can be done to all, even if you are not sick. Because one of the challenges is that people are exposed to the stress. You see that they are stressed. They come to you as a doctor, I have headache, but you investigate, this headache doesn't have any explanation, no? Like there is no malaria, no typhoid, no any hypertension, and all these things are negative. That means, and then if you go deeper, then you realize it is just what this person may be depressed or is undergoing through some mental issues. So, but they will not want to be referred to the therapist or to the psychiatrist because they feel like they are not mad. So I don't know how best can we help our people to understand. I don't know if Dr. Peter can also help on the team on how we can reach out to the people to move them to that kind of understanding that I need a therapy even if I'm not mad as they normally generally would say it. And the other thing is, you know, most of the people currently, they found themselves working 24 hours. They hunt for money. So this person goes morning, he goes to the market, sell his thing, comes back in the evening, he sleeps. So he doesn't have time to get the right information like this. He doesn't have time. Also the same thing, those who are working in the offices, they will be in the office. They also have literally no time. They come in the evening, sleep, and like that. So how can we help this kind of people to get access into the health information like the way Peter shared now? So thank you. I hope not to bore you a lot with a lot of information at once. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sala. Yes, definitely. I mean, a platform where we can talk to each other is not boring. These are things that we all need to hear. And I'm sure Peter will come in a little later again to just let us know, you know, like you've asked, how do we let people know that counseling is not because you are mad? There is so much stigma attached to it that people are afraid to go to a counselor. I mean, people will come into a counseling room and even say, you know, I don't want people to know that I'm seeing a counselor. You know, they don't want people to know that they're going for therapy. But you have said something that's very, very important, Dr. Sala. Life happens. And as we are living, there's so many things that we are thinking about. We are thinking about how to put food on the table. So we have to leave early in the morning and go and work. And we have to make sure that our children can eat as we parent, you know. We have to make sure that their school fees is paid. We have to make sure that they have their haircuts. They don't look very shabby, you know, otherwise the neighbors are looking and wondering, you know, what's happening. You know, teachers are looking at children coming to school with uncombed hair and they're wondering, where are the parents? Parents are out there working. Parents are working. Parents are trying to make ends meet. Parents are struggling. Many parents are working on their own. We have a growing number of single parents, you know, coming up in almost every community around us, you know. We are losing parents, your relationships are becoming strained, and so there's family breakdown. If it's not strained relationship, you know, there are deaths. Some of these deaths are because of lifestyle. Some of them are really, you know, things that we cannot avoid. There are accidents that happen. And so those stresses of life, like somebody said, I'm looking at the chat, life events are some of these challenges that give us grief. And as we grieve, it affects our mental health because you cannot be in a place of grieving and you are happy. When you're in a place of grieving, you know, there is that denial, there is that anger, there is that fear. You know, you've experienced a loss. And that affects who you are and how you respond to situations around you. It will also affect your relationships and how you respond to your children. Something else in the chat is, again, the same thing to do with grief, loss of a loved one. You know, I was talking to a young lady and she seemed to be perfectly okay on the outside. And then she said, you know, my family have not even noticed that I am depressed ever since I lost my grandmother. Her grandmother was, you know, a very stabilizing factor in her life. And so what we see behavior of our children, and we don't understand that there are so many things that are underlying. In the same way as parents, we have so many behaviors. We are shouting at the children. We are, making demands of them. We are saying things that we don't really mean, hurting them with our words, because there are so many underlying issues that we are dealing with. And these issues are coming up just because of life. Some of them are not necessarily out of mental illness. So we can, as he said, we may have anxiety disorders, but we may have anxiety also because, we are panicking about what's happening in the lives of our children. Are you able, some of you, a phone call comes in from school. You haven't yet paid, the balance of your children's fees. That alone brings anxiety. It's not that you don't want to pay it, but life is happening. The landlord is asking for his as well. At the market is not going to give you food if you don't have that money. You have credit at the shop, you have credit at the school, you have credit everywhere, you have a bank loan. These things really stress us. We have situations of depression. He talked about depression as an illness, and depression beyond a certain point, yes, can become a very serious illness, and it has to be addressed. But we are depressed. We are depressed because life turned out to be the way that we expected it to turn out. When we were planning for our lives, we were not planning for all the problems that have come along with those things. When we talk about loss, you don't plan for somebody to die, but they die. You don't plan to lose a job, but sometimes it happens. We went through the COVID-19 pandemic and people lost their jobs. People lost their homes. People lost property. People lost friendships. People lost so much. They lost identity because their identity was tied up into what they were doing. People lost, families because now we were living with each other and there had been so much distance created by our lifestyle that we didn't know how to connect anymore. And so much was lost. So as we are dealing with that loss, it brings on depression. And in the midst of that depression, you still have your young ones looking at you, expecting you to parent them. We have health, which is breaking down. We are eating. I was at the doctor's the other day and weighed myself, and in kilograms, I am 3 digits in kilograms, and that is really, really high. And the doctor was saying you need to cut down on sugar and maybe, take wheat out of your diet. And I'm looking at this doctor and saying, but I love my bread, And so mine, we are talking about a health issue because of lifestyle. For some people, it's not lifestyle. For some people, it is. But we have our health that is breaking down. And when you're not fit, when you're not healthy, you're not feeling yourself, you have low energy, you're not able to parent with the energy that you need to pour into these growing children. Somebody talked about, shame. We have shame. Our life hasn't turned out the way we expected. Some of us are comparing ourselves with other people and seeing that our colleagues have made or seem to have made greater strides than us. But we don't really know, because you never know what's happening behind somebody's door. There might be, this face, this mask, or which presents in the nicest way possible. They have this wonderful home, they are smiling, they are driving this car, they seem to have this nice job, but behind the scenes, you do not know what is happening. And yet sometimes we look at that and we feel shame in where we are in our own lives. And that shame, sometimes makes us feel that we have failed. We have failed because we had expectations even of ourselves, and those expectations remain unmet. So when we talk about mental health, there are so many players in this field that come in, and these definitely affect how we parent our children. So I have a question here. How do those mental health problems and parenting styles affect our children's development and well-being? Yes, somebody mentions here separation and divorce too. And that is very, very hard on a family, very hard on the parents who are going through this, but even hard on the children who don't even sometimes know the reason why the family is being split up. And we have situations where the children are moving from one home to the other. You know, you're moving homes every weekend. You have a different set of rules in one home, a different set of rules in another home. It causes so much confusion. And it's very important for us to remember that children are egocentric. They take things personally. They actually think that they may be the cause of some of these things. And as parents, we sometimes forget to have conversations with our children. And when we forget to talk, talking is so important. That child makes up a story in their mind. It's very, very important for us to talk to our children, especially about things that will affect them. How can we talk or advise a mother who isn't supportive when it comes to issues concerning raising children? Homework, necessary advice, counseling. I'm looking at this as a question here. Yes, parenting styles. And Peter actually did talk about parenting styles a little bit. And he said, you know, these are things that we have had over and over again. But let me just quickly mention some of those parenting styles that are, you know, more common to us, you know, as laymen. We have authoritarian parents. We have parents who are very strict. Now, those parents, it's almost like there's no negotiation. They set the rules and the children have to follow these rules. These parents have high expectations of their children. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you're met with punishment. There is very limited flexibility. And those parents are normally not very nurturing. So these are not your typical, gentle, loving, listening parents. What happens in a situation like that is that you find that the children are very well behaved. They're well behaved because there are consequences that come out of not being behaved. If you were raised by an authoritarian parent, just raise your hand up. Let me see here. Many of us in Africa were raised by authoritarian parents where they set the rules and we just followed the rules. Those children are very good at following instructions. And you know, a parent may deceive themselves and say, my child is the best because they're well behaved and they follow instructions. But what they don't realize, yes, thank you very much. I see that hand. But what they don't realize is that these children are not able to make decisions on their own. You're making decisions for the children all the time. So your parenting style is going to affect how your child develops. They depend on you to make decisions for them. They don't know whether they should make rice or potatoes today because I will probably cook rice and mommy will say, didn't you see that rice was just enough for this week? You know, or I'll do potatoes and mommy will say, why did you do the potatoes? I had planned on rice today. So our children, you know, we take away that decision making from them when we're always making decisions. They have a low self-esteem as well because they are not allowed to think on their own. And so when they face people who think, you know, and who can ask questions, these children normally don't know how to respond because we have not taught them to do that. They are not allowed to ask us questions. They are not allowed to talk back at us. And so they don't have that esteem to be able to answer questions as well. So these children also somehow become aggressive because, you know, there is anger that comes from being put down all the time. And just because I cannot express my anger to my parent doesn't mean I don't have it. When I get out of the home, I may bully another child, you know. So there is that kind of parenting and it affects how our children turn out. There are authoritative parents. Now, in psychology, we say this is probably the best kind of parenting because the authoritative parent is close to their child. The authoritative parent is nurturing. They have rules, but these rules are discussed together with the children. Children understand why this rule is in place. For example, we will say, you know, let's have a time for curfew. You know, you have children now beginning to get into their teenage years. Susan, you mentioned children are getting to 14. And now they want to go and spend some time at the neighbor's house. They don't want to be back home at 5 o'clock. They're saying, Mommy, it's just next door. You know, can't I come home at 6? Maybe there's a program that's on TV and I want to watch it with my friends from 5 to 5:30. So you set as an authoritative parent, you're setting rules and saying the reason why I want you to be home at this time is because, you know, it is safe for you, or it's because there are chores that we need you to begin to start on, things like that. So you explain the reasons. And when we are talking about punishment in authoritarian, in authoritative, we are talking about discipline. So when there are things that don't go according to plan, children are disciplined. They understand that there is a consequence to what you didn't do or to what you did that wasn't right. And so children here are disciplined. They have clear guidelines, they have input, and communication is clear. Now, these children turn out to be more confident. They are responsible children because they know that they can discuss things. They are not living in fear of their parents. They are independent. These children are able to accomplish goals that they set for themselves or even that parents set for them because they have this confidence in life that they can actually tackle it since they've been doing this together with their parents. They have a high sense of self-esteem and they achieve much. So there is also that parenting style, and this is how it affects the children. Now there are uninvolved parents. That's another parenting style. This parent is completely out of the way. They may meet the needs of the child. They are paying fees, but they're not even following up on, is the homework done? Or were their teachers actually in class? But they know that I've paid fees and I have provided a way for you to get to school. What happens in school is not their business. These parents are detached. They are detached from their parents, and so they're called uninvolved. So they don't offer so much nurture to their children. They are not, Peter used the word warm. They are not warm. And because of that, also their expectations are very low. They actually don't expect much from their children. They are uninvolved. Now, those children turn out to be resilient because they have had to learn to look after themselves from a young age. The uninvolvement of the parent means that they have to take care of their own business. So that child has to make sure that they're ready for school. When they suffer consequences of late coming at school, maybe, there's some sort of punishment, then they come home and they know that, what, I have to get up early so that I don't have this punishment at school. Those children become self-sufficient, but it is out of the need. It is not because they are naturally like that. It is out of the need. So you'll find, a parent who goes away to work early in the morning, not so much that they don't want to be involved, but life means they cannot be involved. Now, parents, those children will learn. You come home and you find that the child has actually prepared a meal for you. You're sitting down, you're tired, and this meal is ready. Your child has prepared that. They learn to become self-sufficient. But they have less coping strategies. They're not able to cope with many of the stresses of life because they've not had the guidance. When a child watches their parent coping with life, they are learning. You may tell your child to do something, but when you show your child how to do it, that child begins to actually cope better with the action instead of the words. So we want to show our children how to live. We want to show them how to face problems. We want to show them how to build relationships. We want to show them how to deal with conflict in the home. Something that Peter mentioned about, you see that marriages even break. A child may not even want to become married later on. Yes, if they see that, in the marriage in the home, there's always fighting, that child will say there's no point in getting married. No matter how much you tell them the good about marriage, they will say, no, I saw my parents fighting all the time. And so what we show them is so important. So as an uninvolved parent, you're not there to model, you're not there to demonstrate how a child can cope with issues that can actually cause mental health issues. And so being uninvolved is not good. And finally, the other parenting style is the permissive parenting. So permissive parenting, the parent is really warm, the parent is friendly, they are nurturing, but they actually don't even have many expectations of their children. Expectations are low. Really, house rules, family rules are almost non-existent. There's so much open communication. They don't even spend time disciplining the children. They are more like friends instead of parents to their children. So this parenting style, and I think now this is where we are coming to that question that somebody asked. Someone doesn't seem to be caring, doesn't seem bothered about some of the things that are happening. So this really means that children will develop unhealthy habits. There are so many unhealthy habits that come out of this because, I mean, if you're permissive, you're going to allow your child. If a child says, you know, I don't want to eat my beans and matoke, what I really want to eat is bread, you know, or I want 5 spoons of sugar in my tea, you're going to allow this to happen. And because you're allowing this to happen, your child is going to develop some unhealthy habits. And this now turns out to become health problems later on. There is so much freedom for children where there's permissive parenting. And you'll find that these children can spend much of their time in front of the TV instead of reading, instead of doing their homework. This freedom for the children means that these are children who don't know how to regulate themselves. Later on in life, they are impulsive. I get what I want, when I want, how I want, because that is how it was allowed at home. And so when they get a situation where they don't get it, they become demanding, they become selfish because they are used to getting their own way. And these are also children who don't have very good social skills. You'll find that because anything was allowed, these are children who were not calmed down, who were not taught, this is how we greet, this is how we interact, this is how we share. So I hope that answers the question with the different parenting styles and the effect that it has on our children. But it's also very important to note that with those parenting styles, we also as individuals have our own mental health issues. So you may be an authoritative parent, which is really great, but an authoritative parent with a mental health challenge becomes different. I mean, imagine that you're a parent who likes to communicate with your child, but you're having a problem at work as well. You know, it's causing you some stress. Now, the communication may still be there, but it will not be as good as you desire it to be. You know, you may be short with the child. You may not have enough time to understand their issue. So the impact of our parenting styles on a child's development is really, really varied, and it is also unpredictable. There are different risks that come with it. There are psychosocial risks. You know, it affects the way the child thinks, and it affects the way the child also interacts with others and behaves in their environment. When our children see us model anger and aggression, they assume that that is the way that you deal with situations. And so don't be surprised when at home you are shouting at a child and then you're being called from school to say, this child is fighting, you know. Don't be surprised when your child sees you sitting on the sofa, on the phone all the time, gossiping. And then your child goes to school and they're not motivated to work because they don't see you work. So what we do also affects how our children behave. What we say affects how our children behave because it also affects how our children think about themselves. You know, you may say something as simple as, don't disturb me to the child. And the child interprets it in a different way because of what happened to them that day. Maybe they will decide, I am a burden. I am a burden to my parent. So the way you parent a child is definitely going to affect how your child develops. Peter gave us such a great breakdown into how our children develop, and he gave us, you know, the different ages. So when our children are young, our children, you know, the babies are crying. They're crying out to us and they're saying, I'm hungry in their own baby language. When you respond to your child, when you feed the child when they're hungry, when you change that nappy, that diaper when they are wet or dirty, when you play with them when they are bored, what you're doing in the life of that baby is you're creating trust. So that child develops what in psychology is known as a secure attachment. They are secure. They can trust. They are not afraid. They know that you will go and you will come back. So this trust also means that, this situation means that the early experiences in life are very critical because the way we parent a child is going to affect how that child develops. Later on, when you're beginning to train your child, potty training, you want your child to learn how to use a potty. If you're doing it gently, where they make mistakes and those mistakes are, it's okay, it's all right. You know, you missed the potty this time. You know, you can aim better next time, things like that, where they have soiled themselves and they are not punished for that. What happens is that then that child begins to have that sense of pride of autonomy. They can do things on their own instead of feeling shamed. So the way we parent a child in this age is very, very important. You don't want your child to begin to avoid you, because if you are also punishing your child all the time, your child will begin to avoid you. And as they grow older, they develop what is called an avoidant attachment style. Now, we may think that this is not such a big deal, but it is a big deal, because this is the way that that child begins to relate, not only with you, but also with other people in life. As they grow older, their attachment styles influence, affects how they relate with other people later on, their spouses, and even their children. I mean, you can imagine that if you have an avoidant person as a partner, this is a person who is not going to be there. They are going to remain distant with you as well. You know, they are going to have problems with intimacy because they are afraid of that rejection that they experienced as a child. It remained in them. So they are socially and romantically not involved. They are avoidant, not because they don't want to be, but it's their way of protecting themselves. They don't talk much. They don't share their thoughts. They don't share their feelings because of what they experienced as a child. And so as a child continues to grow around the ages of 3 to 5, you find that this child now begins to find purpose in life. You know, they are moving around. They want to help you with cleaning. And if you allow the child to help you with cleaning the house, they will feel, yes, I have a purpose. If you allow them to help, you know, put away your toys, you give that child a purpose. And so you're helping them get initiative. So your style of parenting is very important at every level of child's growth. So while you're at home and you're there and you're available, that is the best place for you to begin to teach your child. Put that away, bring this here with a right tone of voice. You're teaching that child when you come from school, take off your uniform. This is where you put it. Put your bag in this place. You're teaching that child independence. And so that child is learning how they should grow. That child is learning in confidence. They're growing in confidence because of your presence and because of how you are working with them. Another way that children attach to us is resistant attachment. And this comes when, for example, a child keeps on asking for help. Maybe that baby has been crying and you don't respond immediately. So that baby cries all the more. That baby becomes more and more demanding and they don't give up. So that child upregulates their behavior. They keep on doing more because they're saying, if I cry louder, they are going to answer. And so even when you come and you're trying to comfort them, they continue showing you their displeasure. They continue crying, no, mommy, no, because they're telling you, I am not happy with the time that you took to respond to me. Now, these children become less confident in life. They are less confident in exploring their environment. They are wary of strangers because they did not even get the responses that they needed when they were at home with their primary caregiver. That also begins to affect them later on in life. In their relationships, they are the kind of people who will worry. They'll worry about being left. They'll worry about, is this person going to stay with me or not? You'll find that they have so many relationships because they are not even sure which one is the one that is going to stay with them. And so the way we parent our children, as Peter said, we are parenting also because we were parented in a certain way. So monkey see, monkey do. Very important for us to remember. And our children can also become disorganized. They can have a disorganized attachment because of the way we parent them. They become afraid. They, as they come towards us, you can see you call a child and they are coming, but you see their facial expression and the child is afraid. They are coming towards you, but they are coming with fear. Why? Because of the way you have been. Sometimes you are up, sometimes you are down. Sometimes you're laughing with them, sometimes you're not. And one of the things that Peter mentioned is that one of the issues that we are dealing with is substance abuse. And you find that parents who abuse substances, parents who drink a lot, parents who use things that, change your brain chemistry, those parents, they don't have a consistent way of behaving. And so because of that, those children don't even have a consistent way of responding. And so our parenting style is definitely going to affect our children's development and their well-being in the long run. So as a teacher, I am a teacher, and as a teacher in school, we see parents coming in and we tell parents that your children don't have to open their mouths to report you, but their behavior actually tells us whether you are parenting in a certain way or not. Their behavior tells us what you are doing, So children report you by the way they behave. So we look at them, and in many cases, it is actually true. The apple does not fall far from the tree. So before we are blaming our children, before we are quick to blame, it's very important for us as parents to take a look at ourselves if we can. And it takes me back to what Peter was talking about mental illness. Sometimes in mental illness, you don't have the capacity to see that there is something wrong with you. It is another person who can see that. And so as partners, as a church community, are we able to help our friends who are struggling? Are we able to also point them to help instead of talking about them, gossiping behind them? That lady, she's always this, she's always that. That gentleman, have you noticed the way he talks? He does whatever. When we notice something, sometimes the person who is mentally ill does not have the capacity to notice it themselves. It is up to us to help our fellow brethren. This is a church community, and we should be able to lift one another up. So our parenting styles definitely affect our children's development and well-being. Do I have you here? Can I see some comments on that chat? Do you recognize your parenting style? Anybody? Can I see? Can you write whether you're authoritarian, authoritative, permissive? Are you a mix of some? Are you uninvolved? I'm looking at the chat and waiting for some responses. Would anyone like to share a personal story about their parenting style? Any insights that they have gathered from Peter's and my conversation before we talk about some practical ways to deal with mental health problems? I am not looking at the chat. Susan, are there any comments from our listeners?
Yes, we have a comment from
Yes.
Mr. Sopija Steven. Is saying, wow, I love what I'm hearing. I'm learning a lot thanks to our presenters. So far, that's just an appreciation to you, our presenters, and members on the call. I encourage you to keep commenting in the chat. We are live here with the chat. So we are saying also, there's a comment that says parenting styles depends on the mood.
And our mood depends on our mental health, right? Yeah, so definitely our mood is going to affect the way we deal with our children. But your parenting style will not so much depend on the mood. You already have that style. Your mood is just going to affect how you respond or react to your child at that time. And when our moods are negative, thank you so much for that comment. Very, very important. When our moods are negative, sometimes we find that we are reacting from feelings and not from thought. So we become like children and we now have no impulse control. I have come from work, I am tired. Maybe I've had a very difficult time at work. Maybe my pay is even late and I have not been able to bring bread, and you're waiting for me and all that. So I come home already in a very bad mood. So when that happens and someone comes and says, Mommy, so-and-so took my pencil. I was trying to do homework and whatever. Now that mood may make me lash out at a child. That child has not done anything bad at that time. In fact, they saw a savior. The child actually saw the person who was going to solve the problem. But the person who was going to solve the problem came in such a bad mood and reacted. They did not respond to the situation. They reacted to the situation. They reacted because they were not able to regulate themselves. So as parents, it's very, very important for us to choose the mature response. Not so easy when stresses of life are pressing you down. This is where we have to take responsibility for our thoughts and for our actions. Instead of blaming, you made me do it. We have parents who actually tell their children, they beat a child and then they say, you made me beat you. No, your child cannot make you beat them. You know, you made me shout at you. No, 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 no. That was your choice. You reacted to what that is the way that you reacted. And sometimes it's because we have our own traumas as parents. Sometimes we ourselves have not learned how to deal with situations. And so because of that, we've not taught our children how to deal with these situations. It's also important for us to have healthy skills of coping. So if you had an issue at work and you were able to deal with that issue before you came home, your mood would not have been so bad when you looked at your child. Instead, maybe your child would have given you joy instead of causing you anger. So as parents, we need to really check our mental health. We need to check whether we are able to calm ourselves down. Sometimes you just need to take time to breathe before you enter the house. Just say, I have left work behind. I went to work. I did not achieve what I wanted, but that is okay. Home is a different place. So we have to learn how to also tolerate some distress. Things are going to happen and we are going to have to learn to tolerate these things. You know, we're going to have to learn to face them. If you're not able to tolerate distress, then you get into that place of depression. Then you get into that place of anger. Then, you know, you have to know that it's very normal to sometimes have a meltdown. It's normal. It's normal for you to experience something and just say, this is too much for me. I can't deal with it. But when your child has their meltdown, it's also okay for you to tell that child that that is normal. But then let the child see you bring them back up. So now that you have expressed your feelings in anger, take a deep breath. Ask your child, so how is this anger helping you? Is there a better way in which we could deal with this? Because what the child is actually saying is, you know, I am scared. You know, what the child is saying that, you know, this thing is consuming me. So as you also learn to deregulate, as you learn to regulate yourself, you're saying, this is not going to consume me. Yes, I'm angry right now, but it's not going to consume me. And so you're able to breathe, you're able to calm down, and you're able to teach your child how to respond also when they have situations like that. So then you're communicating from a place of wisdom. Peter talked about empathy. You're able to empathize with another person. Because you empathize, you have some self-compassion. Parents, we can't solve all the problems in the world. And even the ones you solve today, tomorrow others will come up. So you remember Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. He has overcome the world. And so because he has overcome the world, it is now us to also have some compassion on ourselves when we have these troubles, knowing that it has been overcome. I love Proverbs chapter 14, I think it's 26. And it says that, you know, those who trust in the Lord, he who fears the Lord has a secure fortress. You know, those who fear the Lord are secure, and he will be a refuge for their children. So in fearing the Lord, he allows me to calm down. I run to him with my problems. He calms me down. And as he calms me down, then I'm able to face a situation. I am angry with my teenager, yes, but I can say, Holy Spirit, help me. I am so angry. I want to say this and this and that. But give me the right words, because you know the heart of this child and you know my heart. And then by the time I'm talking to my child, even me, I'm saying, hey, where do those words come from? So we have a helper, the greatest helper, the Holy Spirit, who helps us in these times when we are not able to control ourselves. And it's so important for us also to have boundaries. as a person, you must have boundaries. You must be able to know that this is time for my home, this is time for work, this is time for my boss, this is time for my friends, and then we also have to also teach our children responsibilities, not only at home, but also in their community. How are they supposed to behave? So parenting, yes, your reaction can depend on your mood that day. But it's very, very important for us to know that we have particular styles that we keep on running back towards. Right. So thank you very much for that comment. I see our time is fast running out, and we definitely want to touch on some practical ways of dealing with mental health problems to improve our parenting and our children's development. I am reading that from the chat. So anybody has any practical ways that they have been using to deal with these problems? Please type them on the chat for the benefit of the entire group. If there's something that you have been doing that has really worked, we all learn together. Please type out what you have been doing. Can we share? Doreen, you want to share with us?
Hey, who's that lonely fishy? Excuse me.
Okay, I hear the TV in the background, Doreen, and the children listening in. So that's a parent who is being present. Her children are in the background, but she's also here with us. Thank you very much. So what are some things that we can do? What are some things that we can do to help us with our mental health? I think one of the most important things is connection. And we are doing that here right now. We are connecting with a community that can help us to recognize that, you know what, we are not alone in this journey of parenting. It's very, very important for us to have people that we can share with. Parents who have gone through what we have gone through, parents who are able to share with us their own experiences to help us feel normal. Sometimes you're dealing with that child and you say, is it only my child? Is it only me? But when you have that connection, it's so important. It's good for us to socialize. And a connection means that you have someone to share your fears with. You have someone to share your disappointments with, but you also have someone to share your joys with. So one of the most important things that we can do is really to have a community with which we can connect. And thank you very, very, very much for, this platform, GABA Community Church, so important. Ambrose here says, seek for support and knowledge. Yes, very important. And I'll just break that down into two. So the community will help you find that support. The connection will help you find that support. I think Peter knows the community in this church because he mentioned some names here. So definitely we need that support. But knowledge on what's happening is also important. Sometimes we don't know. And sometimes, you don't even know that your child also has their own feelings. You don't know that because of the way you were raised. You were raised to suppress yours. And so you don't understand when a child is talking back to you, when a child is asking a question. So it's also important for us to recognize that even as we have a community, we need to seek people who actually know what is going on, because you don't want to get wrong information, right? Another thing that we can do is be physically active. Physical activity is great. It's really a great distressor. So that may mean going to your garden and digging, just letting out some of that excess energy. It's very, very good for our mental health. That may mean going and walking. Somebody was telling me that she has chosen now to take a walk from home to work every morning. And although she hadn't done it for very many days, she was saying, I feel so good. There's a way in which walking gives us, such clarity of thought. How you're walking and you're thinking things out. So physical activity is important. Go and dance. It's good for us to exercise through dancing. Physical activity is so important. Learning a new skill. Learning a new skill is also a great way of dealing with mental health issues. You know, it increases your confidence, it increases your self-esteem. As you learn a new skill, also you're learning it from somebody else. So that also builds connection. So as we learn new skills, you know, it's so important that we recognize that those skills are powering our minds in a way that they were not before. We become empowered the more that we learn. Listen to music, get a good hobby, you know, sing, share stories, change an environment. There's so much that we can do. I'm looking at my time and I'm speaking so fast, you know, so change your environment, you know, go and visit somebody. As we change environment, it's you know, good for us. And please don't forget self-care. Take care of yourself. You know, that may mean just getting out of that place for an hour and just, you know, going and visiting someone who can calm you down. You know, that may mean just going and washing your hair in a salon instead of washing it at home. You know, just go somewhere where someone can take care of you and you feel good, you know. So don't forget to take care of yourself. You know, fathers, take care of yourselves. You're taking care of your family all the time. I am so pleased to see, you know, many men on this platform. Thank you, fathers, for joining in. It's usually, you know, mothers who are asking about parenting. And, you know, and these are fathers who I am even seeing the chats, you know, I'm seeing gentlemen are the ones posting these questions. Fathers, don't forget to take care of yourself, but take care of yourself in a healthy way. Exercise, look good, buy a new shirt. Yes, you're buying for us our clothes and things like that. Buy one for yourself as well. Don't forget to take care of yourself. It's very, very important. And I think I had a quote one time. Somebody said, you know, so let's see, how do we spell the word love? How do we spell love? Anyone spell love? For me, that's an easy one. How do we spell love?
Love, love.
Thank you very much. Love. But I read somewhere that children spell love Time. Time. And so your children need your time. So as you're taking care of other people, please also remember to just create time for those young ones, not on your terms, but on their terms. Create time with them and play that football with them. Kick the ball around. It will be so good for you. You know, make time with the little girls and do the things that the little girls like to do. I was, you know, looking at something on a TikTok that someone sent, and this man had so much makeup on his face. And he said, you know, I bought my daughters a makeup kit and I was their model. And he allowed his little girls to do that. The girls will never forget that, you know. They love that memory, spending time with their father. I love what I'm seeing here on the chat. Yes, self-care, you have to be okay yourself. Hurting people hurt people. Yes. And the thing is, when you're hurting, sometimes you don't even know that you're hurting another person. So it's good to have an accountability partner who can be able to share with you that you are not in a good place. Okay, I see some of us have friends who advise us wrongly when it comes to parenting. Choice of who you're friends with, so important. You can't choose your family, but you can definitely choose your friends. So make those right choices. Stress management, deep breathing. I see this here, progressive muscle relaxation, behavior activation. We are going to need Kulindi Tito to have a session with us and teach us some of these things. All right, I like this, having a healthy, active relationship with God. Absolutely. For me, He is my firm foundation. He is the rock on which I stand. And that always helps me to, even if I fall down, I have fallen on someone firm and I can rebuild again. Okay. All right. Yes, I see some people are loving that the new shirt and they are going to buy themselves a new shirt. Yes, when you wear it, please post it on the group. Susan will let us know who bought new shirts for themselves. And what I love most is a church community should be a place where there is no judgment. And so it's so important that even in your church community, you have that space where your people can come and talk, where your people can download, and a place where they are not judged. And in a church community, you know, some of us just come and sit on the pews, but volunteer. volunteer your time, volunteer your energy, volunteer your knowledge, you know. And as you do that, you'll connect with others. And that's such a great way for us to have that. You know, sometimes we have sick people in our community we want to visit, you know. Visit them. As you give to others, you also are able to fill up your own cup. And please don't forget to rest. We are tired. When Dr. Sala was talking, you know, he talked about, you know, you're going out to do this, and it just reminded me, we are tired. We are tired. We are tired from responsibilities that are ours, and even from responsibilities that are not ours. We've taken them on. We are tired from a culture that is changing so fast that we don't even have the right responses to this culture. You know, your children are holding phones at a young age, phones that for you you held as a 30-something-year-old. You know, in your 20s is when you were holding a phone. We have a culture where, you know, a child comes home now from primary and they're telling you, I love that girl, I have a crush on someone. What is that? What is this culture? This is something that when we were growing up we didn't hear, we didn't see. So there is a lot that is changing around us, and we have to know what our children are dealing with. If we don't know what our children are dealing with, if we don't give them that TIME, we won't know what they're dealing with, and we will assume that they're dealing with what we dealt with. And then we will parent them in the way that we were parented. And it doesn't work anymore. We need to parent them in a way that they should go. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go. In the way that that child should go. Our children are different. You cannot use one way of parenting, one style to train up all your children. I see that my time is up. Susan, I'm 2 minutes over time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wacha. You have shared it all. And actually, I'm beginning to wonder, how do I get to that parent who uses the authoritative parenting style such that the development of our children will be up to the standard? But we appreciate you so much. However, there was an earlier request in the chat. It was actually a question. So having had all this and knowing that this is what we're supposed to do to bring up these children into the healthy mind, in a healthy state. So, because what we know is some parents actually have challenges, but they don't know they do have challenges. So just in a few minutes, because I see our time is fast spent, I just wanted you to make a small comment on how do we know we have a problem? How do we know we need help? Thank you. Over to you, Ms.
I think
Wacha.
yes, Peter had such a great presentation, and in one of his slides, he actually put down signs. There are signs, you know, you're feeling tired all the time. You're irritated as a parent. You are not motivated. You know, you're hearing comments about things that, you know, you used to do that you're no longer doing. Even yourself, you're thinking, you know, we used to eat together as a family, but now everyone is just picking their plate and going off in different directions. You are not being able to gather your family to talk together anymore. There are certain things that are so subtle, but those are things that begin to show that we are losing control. And, you know, a loss of control actually gives some of us fear, because you want to be able to control what's happening now. You want to control what's happening in the future. You can't always have control. And also your children, listen to your children. Your children will tell you. Your children will tell you, they will say, Mommy, you know, you don't listen to me these days. Or Mommy, you said you would do this and, you know, you haven't done it. Or Daddy, you know, you promised me last week. Or you said I should remind you. I've reminded you the third time. Listen to your children, because they're the ones you're parenting, and they have so many of those answers that you're looking for. Don't dismiss them. Don't dismiss their concerns. Take that time to actually listen and respond to those. And have a friend, have good friends, have people with whom you can talk, because those people will be able to say, you know what, I've noticed that these days you're working so hard. You're not spending time with the children. You know, make some time. That person will ask you, so how are you balancing? What's your work-life balance like? You know, I know that there can't really be a balance, but at least have that person who can ask you that question. I hope that answers your question in some way.
Yes.
And it's just important for us to know that we cannot conclude everything. We all learn from each other, and knowledge keeps on changing every day. But I'm sure that even here on the platform, we have people who can give us some of those answers.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wacha. And thank you for helping us to be aware of ourselves. So when we start to see such signs, dear participants, let's seek for help. Let's do the practical ways that have been given to us so that we'll parent in a healthy manner. I can see there are more comments coming in the chat, but of course that explains that we cannot only do one dialogue and be on the top of it. So we will probably suggest another one, and we hope that when we send our invitation to Ms. Wacha and Mr. Virunji, you will honor it like you did this time around. Thank you so much. It's been great, and I just want to give you 2 minutes to each of you. I don't know if Mr. Virunji is able to speak. I know if you're able to speak, Mr. Virunji,
Let me go first and speak now.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Lukwago, for hosting us. I am very thankful for all the participants. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for all your input and reactions and ideas. I just want to answer Dr. Yasu's question about how do we then actually get people to realize they need help and get help. I think there's no other way other than continuing to educate, sensitize. And for you in the medical profession and all of us as healthcare providers, there's such a thing in our business called providing networking and partnering. These are important principles of our practice, but most times they are either not implemented out of circumstantial factors or ignorance, or I don't know what happens to us. But as professionals, if you are, for example, a medical doctor and a child shows up or a parent shows up and you see these symptoms, it's in your best interest and also in your professional prerogative to make a good referral. Have a list of possible service providers that you're partnered with, or that you have.
I think we've lost Mr. Virunji. Hello.
Can easily refer people to. Beyond pharmacotherapy, refer, connect them. And then above all, let's use all avenues to educate. Radio, Zoom, everything. Let's not shy away from all.
Mr. Virunji, we have lost you again.
Opportunities to say someone who needs your help. All for listening. Sorry, I am driving now.
Mr. Virunji, you're muted.
I think you've lost him. You finished. Just continue.
Okay, then let's have Madam Wacha. Ms. Wacha, kindly let us have your last word on the dialogue. Then we'll call it a day. Thank you.
I think I really just want to appreciate you.
I thought you were hearing me. Hello?
Invitation.
We had actually lost you, but you can give us your last word in 2 minutes. Thank you.
Just to thank you, participants and everyone, for your
Go ahead, Ms. Wacha. Sorry.
contribution to answer. I was saying we need to network so that people can benefit. Thank you so much, Mr. and Mrs. Lukwago, for hosting us today.
You're welcome, Mr. Birungi, and thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Over to you, Ms. Wacha.
Indeed, mine is also just to say thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I really pray that the Lord continues to, just enlarge your territory and give you the ability to impact your parents so that they will impact their children for Christ.
Thank you so much. It's been great, and we appreciate you all members for attending, members on the call. Thank you so much for sparing time to attend this dialogue. We have not been left the same. We are different, and we are going to go and practice what we have learned. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Lukwago, the head of the counseling department. And of course, I appreciate Gaba Community Church through you, Pastor Sir, for hosting us this afternoon and for creating the platform. Thank you so much. Mr. Lukwago, just a word in a minute. Thank you.
My word is very simple. I want to say thank you to everyone who has been able to participate with us. I want to believe the more we work together, the more we move together, we shall definitely change our environment, our experiences, and all will be unto the glory of God. We've shared much about mental health. Now that you know, don't keep quiet, don't stay put just with what you've heard. Use it to influence the rest of the people you interact with. Thank you so much. Again, our thanks to Gaba Community Church and everyone who has been here with us. We do really, really appreciate you. May God bless you. I think let me pray for us because I believe it's also a blessing that we hear these things. So let me make a prayer.
Just to let you know.
Yes.
Just to let you know that I've done a recording of this session. So it will be like a YouTube shared. So I'll share to you, and then those who want to benefit from it can get the YouTube link and they'll find.
Thank you so much. So the recording, like you've heard, yes, thank you so much, Pastor Sir, for that. So let's pray. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for the parents that have given in their time, their data, their presence for learning and sharing and being on this chat together as we grow together. Lord, we pray that you multiply, you grow us to be fruitful in the things we've learned, that we shall influence our children and the rest of the parents we interact with. We give you the praise. We thank you for the participants, for our speakers. Bless every one of them. Bless our church that has hosted us and sponsored us to hold this training. We give you all the praise. For in Jesus' name we've prayed. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Share the YouTube link in the chat. So,
yes, so the link has been shared in the chat. If you want to take some more time just to follow through and listen, please copy it and share it with as many as those you would be able to share it with. Thank you and bye-bye.